to MMI's Minnesota Clarinetist, a virtual series where we feature Minnesota's clarinet teachers and performers. Today, we are so excited to introduce Jennifer Gerth, who is the principal clarinetist of the Duluth Superior Symphony Orchestra, and she teaches clarinet at the University of Minnesota, University of St. Thomas, and she maintains a private studio. Welcome. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Very nice to be here.
So we'll start off, we're in a very strange time. What's kind of keeping you motivated during this time?
Well, that's a great question, Tori. I am kind of an intrinsically motivated person, which is probably not helpful to those people out there. So I will tell you, but I have really good days and I have really bad days. I would say with COVID, it kind of puts everybody in the same boat, but we all respond to it differently based on our own experiences. And I feel like I think being gentle with oneself and one's family members and students is really important. A lot has been taken away from us as performers and human beings, right? Contact, hugs, all those things that I feel like make us human. And instead of focusing on what has been taken away from me, I'm trying to focus on what I've been given. And I would say for me, that's time. I think over the last 10 years or 20 years, maybe for those people who know me well, I'm really busy. And so I don't have inordinate amounts of time to spend either practicing or being with my family or running or being in the garden. And that is what COVID has given me. And so I'm trying to take as much advantage of that as possible. I think as human beings, we tend to take things for granted, and I'm trying really hard not to take time for granted. So that's what I'm focusing on as much as I possibly can. I also don't want to come out of this to whatever the new normal is and be thinking and have regrets and be thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I would have done X, Y, Z with this amount of time that I was given. So that's kind of where I am.
Are there any specific music-related things that you've been doing that maybe you didn't have time to do before?
Absolutely, like the video for this. Video recording is something I am not comfortable with, nor would I probably normally do. But it's what people are putting out there. It's what people want to see. I think we all want to see other humans. And so that's first and foremost. That little project was really good for me in many ways. Very growing experience. The other thing is that I did actually post George Floyd, the death of George Floyd, that affected my family and me very much. And so I reached out to some area band directors in the public schools and got some students on scholarship. I wanted to reach some students that normally would not have the time or the means to have lessons. And so I have some students that I've been seeing weekly on scholarship, and it's just been really rewarding. It's been phenomenal.
That's so great. Yeah, those are the kind of things, that we've been talking about, that makes you really kind of reach out in different ways. And the time you said you have time to do those things.
Right.
You wouldn't, and you always thought you would.
I've always wanted to do and never had the time to do, and it's really meaningful. And so I think going forward, for me and everyone else to figure out, okay, what can I bring into whatever the new normal is? What priorities can I reestablish? And I want to keep doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, so. That's so great.
It's awesome. The recalibration, I love that idea, and just having, ever since that happened, coming together within our field and the different ways we can be more of a community.
Yeah. Right. I think so too.
We're all teachers, and I wanted to kind of ask about, with the virtual online lessons, obviously that's a big reason of how we're able to stay connected to our students. But if you had any advice or suggestions for teachers or students who are kind of looking to explore online lessons and what that kind of looks like or has looked like for you, and just any aspects of that, and given, your wide range of age and skill level of students, kind of speaking to the different groups of, tools maybe that you get to kind of formulate or that you already have, in your toolkit of how to do the virtual lessons.
Okay. Well, I think online lessons have given people an opportunity to study with people who obviously, from far out in the States. So I've had a few students reach out to me from Duluth area and whatnot. Can I take online lessons with you? Which has been great. And it wouldn't be my go-to necessarily. I am very much an in-person person, right? So, but I have also learned a lot about online teaching. For my younger students, one of the things that I have done and that has been really important for them is that I submit recordings to them. So I just, like with voice memo or whatever on my phone, I am constantly, like weekly, sending them recordings, either so that it helps them with exercises if we're learning a new rhythm. And we have this online lesson, and then the rest of the 6 days of the week they're like, I don't remember what that rhythm was, right? They'll text me, hey, can you send me a recording of number 34? So I will do that so that they can learn that way. It also is really important for younger kids. I feel like their community and camaraderie of playing music with other people is so very important. And so I try to send them also a weekly duet. We find something in the book where we can either play a round or a duet or something together so that they have someone to play with. Even if it is, on a recording or virtual, they are making music with another human. Obviously online, you can't play duets, right? Because of the time lag. And so that is an incredibly important part of my teaching young ones in person. And so we've just got to figure out how to go forward with that element. It's just going to be delivered in a different way. With my older students, keeping them motivated, some of them have found COVID to be a relief because they're not so busy and they have time to practice. So they're another set of people. Some of my students have just taken off. For those who have been lost, I've tried to find really fun pieces. Like there's nothing more infectious than for me anyway, than playing one of Kovach's homages, or trying to find, because it's so well written, it's written by a clarinetist and they're super fun. So I try to find a really fun piece to just kind of get them hooked. And then we might do some, that's your reward piece. You have to play these, these core repertoire or these etudes. We're going to do all this stuff first. Here, here are your vegetable pieces or whatever in your well-balanced clarinet diet. You have to do these first and then you get your dessert. And so it's just trying to find the balance for every single student that works. And I've had to tweak it and constantly reevaluate it for each student almost every week. It's trying to find that flexibility because we're all human beings and we all respond to things differently and we all react differently. So it's just trying to find things that motivate. For some of my students, it's just having a weekly lesson. It's just seeing, okay, there's my human that's going to keep me on track or whatever it is. I think it's really important that whatever works for each individual, we honor that and do it.
Okay. Those are all really great ideas. I love the ones, especially for beginners. I've experienced that the same way, those rhythms, those little things, if it's not already online, they're really lost. They just have this dazed look.
Right, exactly.
What do I do? So,
right. And I met one of my students in the summer, or actually in the spring online, and she recently came to my house for like a socially distant sort of semi-outdoor lesson, right? And I borrowed my husband's studio, which we can open the doors and the windows are open, and she came with a mask and everything. And there was this instant sort of, oh my gosh, I'm playing for a person now, versus like online, the computer kind of gives us this little buffer, right? And so I could tell she was super self-conscious at first. And then, I made a joke and we broke the ice, and then it was this great I felt like the rest of our lesson was so great because we figured out all the things that we couldn't do on, via computer, via online, that we could do in person. And so it was really lovely. So I think we need to figure out the best things from online, the best things from in person, try to combine them, try to create, some sort of flexible thing going forward.
Yeah. So that kind of leads to the next question that we had was, adult students as well who have really depended on their community groups as for practicing and that camaraderie, of course. But a lot of the music, I personally have some adult students who the music is quite challenging, and sometimes they're not sure what to do now that they don't have that group, to rehearse with and be on time and really get those those licks down, those kind of things. Do you have any suggestions for that group of people too?
Well, I would say that a similar thing is either recording for them or having them record. I think you introduced me, Tori, to Corrado, right? He's such a dynamic person, and I've passed along those recordings, his YouTube videos to numerous students because it's so fun. And while he does play at kind of ridiculously optimal tempos, right? It still has motivated my students. And so I would say if your students could record the bottom part of the duet and play something even with themselves, right? That can be motivating. I think there's a lot of online resources that I used to I just would never have had the time to look up YouTube recordings, or one of my COVID projects is learning how to double tongue. I'm terrible at it. But I've gotten better, and practicing double tonguing is for Tuesdays and Thursdays for me. And so I've been attempting to do that, and then I'm able to look up online resources. And one of my flutist friends shared a great video with this famous English flutist. And I felt like I learned just as much from his YouTube video that I've learned from clarinetists. And so just having the time to look up these resources is kind of fun. So pick a project for yourself, some aspect of your playing that you really want to improve, and look up online resources since we don't have, in-person resources at this time.
So this will be, I think, kind of the last question about this, kind of in the same vein about resources. Anything new that you have found? I guess the online videos, that would be definitely a new thing. I've been falling down the clarinet rabbit holes of that. With all the different people out there doing the videos, but anything, any books that you've found that have been new, or you mentioned the homages, the Kovacs, or anything that's just kind of standard that we should highlight, I guess?
I've been delving into the Kovacs. So one of my COVID goals is to go through the whole entire book, even the ridiculous Paganini one, because I have a son who plays violin, and so I'm just, I would love to learn all of those. Other online things besides Corrado are just double tonguing resources, and I don't have them at the top of my head, but there are many out there by people in different countries that have been translated. Even when I was going down the rabbit hole of double tonguing, I was trying to learn how to slap tongue, which has completely eluded me my entire career. So that was also kind of fun to just to look into that. There's so many talented people out there and so many great recordings. And when I was, learning the Defia Kovacs piece, there's so many beautiful recordings by young people, by older people. It's just, I feel like there's an unlimited amount that you can watch on YouTube. So I would say those things. I also was reading, actually I got it at MMI of all things. There's a Burton Kaplan book about how to practice that I've been, trying to go through. And I realized that probably for the last decade or so, I haven't had time to sit down and practice really well and be in my own body and get all of my really good habits, get all those ducks aligned, right? And so that's something that I've been focusing on. I think that we can take this little pause that we have really to heart. And if we do that kind of mindful, intentional practice, I think we'd all be better off, both as, as teachers and performers, right?
Yeah.
All of us.
Is there anything specifically fundamental book-wise, or your favorite thing that you go back to as fundamental that during this time that you're like, okay, I'm really going to go back to that? I don't know, whatever it is.
I would say long tones and scales, just playing 5 notes in a row really beautifully, with tons of air and legato. And I think that if you can play 5 notes beautifully, you can play 5 lines beautifully or 5 pages beautifully, but it starts, I think, with those 5 notes. Okay. Or actually it starts with 1 note. I mean, I honestly, I had one student who said, going back to this motivational thing, like, I just didn't want to practice today. Like, what do you do? And on the days when I don't want to practice, I will tell myself to sit down and play 1 note beautifully, just 1 note with all my heart and soul. And an hour and a half later, I think, oh my gosh, I've just practiced, And so, but if you can just sit down and play that 1 note, sometimes that leads to more notes. Sometimes it won't. But ideally, you'll play that 1 note beautifully and get hooked.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love that. So when you were mentioning in the beginning of our interview, you mentioned there were some other non-clarinet music related things that you've been trying to tackle. Can you kind of speak a little bit more to that, or which is some fun things that you really have gotten to do during this time?
Sure. Well, I've always been a runner, and so but normally I have time to run once a week or something like that. So I've been running about 4 times a week. It's about all my body can handle at this point, but I've been running more, walking more, doing more yoga, spending time in my garden, which has been really fun because it's this overwhelming jungle. And so I've actually gotten it somewhat a little bit tamed here and there. So I've been growing a ton of vegetables, and we got chickens, which is crazy. But my husband, Bill, has been wanting chickens for 10 years. And so he built the coop. And as he loves to say, like, there were no woodshop classes at Eastman School of Music. So he learned a lot in that process. So we have 3 chickens now. We adopted a rescue cat. So we sort of have this menagerie and a whole bunch of plants, which has been really fun. I love to cook. So I've been cooking a ton for my family and spending a lot of family time, which I know is really precious these days, as my teen boys are, normally off doing a gazillion different things. For a month, we decided to bake as many kinds of breads from different countries as we possibly could. So that was a project. Ethiopian injera was the hardest thing. And I have so much respect for those people who bake that bread now. But we did a Moroccan kesra and some Greek pita and naan from India. And some of those were actually really fun and very rewarding. So yeah, we've just been trying to dabble in a bunch of different things.
That sounds so great. Well, that's so wonderful. So we so appreciate your time that you've given us, and we really hope that everyone can check out Jen. She has a solo piece that we're putting up as well on our social media sites, and also a chance for everyone to play a duet, which we are really excited about. So thank you again for your time, and we really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing what other projects you have coming up, and hopefully we can all get back to our in-person performances soon. So
right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amelia.
Mm-hmm.